Welcome one and all to the Consistently OK podcast. My name's Luke, and I'm joined with Nick, the main man good. I think I've done that one before. And we're doing an in-depth episode. It's our last in-depth episode of the season for season 3. It's the last film in the View Askew universe film, or the last that's been done so far. And we're talking about Clerks 3. So join us, one and all, for our in-depth on Clerks 3, which starts after this. Films. Here we are. We've made our way through several films. 9 films, Is it? Yeah.
Yes.
And Clerks 3 wrapping up. So it was on the table, off the table. Clerks 3 was going to happen, and then it did happen. So it's I don't know. I feel like you should talk a bit about Clerks 3 first, because I know our views are different on it. So I don't want to be. Maybe your thoughts on it will steer my thoughts in another direction. But I rewatched it for a second time, and my views didn't change at all, which I kind of hoped they would.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk to us all about Clerks 3, Nick.
Yeah, so my second watch of it, I found it funnier than I did the first time.
I feel like you say that about all the Kevin Smith films so far.
Yeah, I don't know
you
why.
find them funnier the second time.
Other than Chasing Amy, which I still find really sad.
Yes.
But I really enjoy it. This rewatch especially, I don't know if it's like being older now and sort of looking at it and you're like, that's gnarly. But I think my first watch of Clerks 3, what I loved about it was always that and this is just going straight for spoilers here, like killing off Dante, I just didn't expect. And I think it was because so much of the View Askew, and I've said this throughout this season, it's like you checking in with friends. It's like you put on a View Askew film and you sort of know these people. Like, you know Brody, you know Jay and Silent Bob, you know Randall, like, you know everyone. And every time they pop up, you're like, oh, this is their tone of voice and this is who they are. And there's never really been a death in all of these films, like somebody that's just been an integral part and has then died. And so when they killed off Dante, I was like, wow, that's big. That's like it's the person you started with, essentially. Like, he's gone. And it feels like this is a real change in the status quo of the View Askew a little bit. Of like, it's the first time that somebody has actively disappeared from this world. And I thought the way it's done, I really liked. And I don't know, I remember leaving the cinema and just being like, that felt like catching up with friends, and then like you have a great time with them, and then like a couple of months later they die, and you're just like, whoa. And suddenly the film feels more like you sort of feeling and remembering those conversations. You remember those times with those people. And that was what this rewatch was for me, is that like watching it the second time, because I knew all this was coming, it was almost just like you sort of like, I focused more on Dante and how he is in this film, and you sort of see how like he really does try to make things better for Randall. Like, he puts everything on the line for him and like keeps pushing for him and helps him out. Even though I think for Dante, it's kind of like he doesn't have the film. Like that's the thing that's what I find interesting about this film, is that it's, you know, Randall has a purpose, and it's make this film. and Dante doesn't. And so for the briefest time, I'm going to help Randall make this film, and I'm going to do this, but
Not enough.
yeah, it's not enough to keep him here. It's not enough to kind of keep him interested, and I just felt like that was really interesting. It's like it's a bittersweet ending. It's like it's sad, and it's kind of like, oh, and it does leave you with that kind of feeling of just like, oh no, like I don't know how I feel about it. Like I enjoyed the film, but it is a weird ending where it's just kind of like, it's like you almost don't have enough time to grieve, because that end is quite quick. It's like he dies and then everything sort of gets resolved within a couple of scenes, and then it's like suddenly
then he's kind of replaced.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, and that's like, I guess that's kind of real in a sense, that it is a case of, if somebody dies, that's that. You just, it's like, that's done. It's not that you don't grieve them, it's just that things keep moving, like the world keeps moving on, it doesn't stop. And yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. But yeah, this second watch, I definitely noticed the more kind of comedic beats and stuff. And I found them funny, and I was just like, yeah, enjoying that kind of like last bit with Dante. And also, I think as well, just for us, like having done this in depth, to finish it on a film where like somebody dies was kind of weird. I was kind of like, ooh, it's like a weird, like we've just done this season talking about all these films and these characters and stuff, and then the end of it is that like one of them dies. So I don't know. Yeah, I really enjoyed the second watch, but I enjoyed the first time as well. Yeah. How about you?
Obviously, a lot of this plays off Kevin Smith having a heart attack, right? So
yeah,
I know that there was an original script, and Anderson wasn't going to be in it, and then I don't think it was because Kevin Smith had a heart attack. It was Anderson, wasn't it? He wasn't going to be in it. He wasn't going to come and play Randall.
Yeah.
And then obviously Kevin Smith had a heart attack, and then he rewrote everything after that. So obviously there's, we have Randall having a heart attack, and then Dante having a panic attack, and then a heart attack, and then it is a heart attack, isn't it? Yeah, he has a heart attack as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And obviously the thing about that is that obviously Kevin Smith did come out of the other side of it, whereas Dante doesn't, but Randall does. But then is he thinking that if he was to die, then things would just move on? Is that his hope, that things just move on? Like the guys that will make these films, like would they not necessarily make something similar, but would they all maybe try and do something? If he would have to go, then would they be like, oh, we can finish this story, or we can try and finish this story? So I wonder how much changed, because I know there was an original script that he completely rewrote it. But in terms of what I thought about Clerks 3, I didn't feel the way you thought about it. I kind of felt like, I don't know if it was just because Clerks and Clerks 2 are quite different, right?
Yeah.
As we said before, they're different things. So to have Clerks 2 in the middle of Clerks and Clerks 3 felt odd. It felt odd to go from Clerks 2 to Clerks 3. And I watched Clerks 2 again for our podcast before I think I'd even... No, I had seen Clerks 3. Yeah, I'd seen Clerks 3 the first time, and then Clerks 2. But they just feel like very different. They're very different. The same characters, but it's it's like Clerks 2 is more like a comedy that you would see every summer at cinema with like American Pie and stuff like that. Whereas Clerks has these different beats to Clerks 2. There are still those moments in Clerks 2, as we said on our podcast with Jeremy, where it's like some of it is really well written, like the Dante stuff especially. But Clerks 3, I kind of just felt like it didn't quite know what it was supposed to be. It kind of felt like we want to keep these characters from Clerks 2 and bring them into the fold as well. But we want it to be very much like Clerks. Obviously, they shoot the film, they're making it black and white as well, so there's a lot of like throwbacks and everything. But I don't know. I didn't love it. I didn't feel that much of a connection to it, which is even surprising considering we were doing these in depths and things like that. I think I just felt a bit lost with it all, and I kind of think it's a bit too. I kind of wish they just didn't kill Dante off. I think,
right,
it was a surprise the first time I saw it because I didn't think they would do it. I didn't really think they were going to kill anyone off, especially when Randall had his heart attack and then
Mhm.
Dante had a panic attack, and then very quickly after that he's down again.
Yeah.
And obviously they killed off Rosie Dawson's character as well
Mhm.
with a baby inside her, which is very sad.
Yeah.
Also obviously affected Dante. I just thought it was a bit too much worry and death. Like it just maybe it was needed. Maybe I should view it the way you view it a bit more, and probably other people have viewed it. But it's just not what I wanted out of it.
Mm.
Not
That's
that Kevin Smith should tailor it to me, but
but
I
that's
kind of wanted
yeah.
I kind of wanted that kind of like film that is like kind of down to earth, but with some stupidity. And it's like you and I have been saying for so long, like Kevin Smith has probably had these conversations, like with Clerks II and Clerks, where these conversations have happened around the table, hanging out with his friends, and like, you know what, that would be really funny to put in this film, but
Mhm.
elaborate on it a bit more or like turn it a certain way. But I didn't feel that. It kind of, I don't know, it kind of felt rushed as well. Like I felt really rushed, like the bits with what's the funny guy from Clerks 2 called? He takes Dante's place essentially. What's his name again?
Elias.
Elias, yeah. Like because Clerks has like humorous bits, right? There are different characters that come in out of the store, but because a lot of these characters are ones we'd already seen before,
Mhm.
it just felt like we were just retreading some of the old ground. And then Dante having a heart attack and things dying, and it is very sad and it's emotional. And like, he gets to see the film, and Randall's like breaking down because it's like that you were always the main character and stuff like that. But it, I don't know, it just didn't feel natural. I don't
Right.
know. I don't know what I thought. Does that make sense? Like it just didn't.
Mhm.
When I watched it, I was kind of, like you said when you left the cinema, you're kind of like, oh man, that's hit hard and things like that. But I didn't really feel anything about it. I was just kind of like, it's a bummer that Dante died. I wish he didn't die. I
Mhm.
didn't leave thinking, well, that really completed the story for me. Like,
Mhm.
it's good that he died because this is this and this is this. It's kind of like, oh man, why did anyone have to die in that film? Like,
Yeah.
a heart attack? There's enough with them both having heart attacks to realize how much they actually care about each other
Mhm.
and what they were trying to do for each other. Because Randall tries to pull, Clerks II, Randall's trying to be like, you should not be with this woman, basically, and like, they both try and help each other in different moments. And Randall's a bit more off the, you know, just does a bit more outrageous stuff than Dante, but Dante's equally involved in halftime. Like when they're playing ice hockey on the roof and stuff like that, or hockey on the roof, it's like that's when they're proper mates. Like,
Mhm.
and it just feels like a bit of an opportunity wasted. I think. I just think some of it was unnecessary, and that's what pulls it down for me.
Mhm.
Not in it because it was sad or depressing. It was, but just because I almost wanted it to end with those two. You wanted to be a bit of growth, so they're not exactly where they started, but kind of the realization that like, okay, this is where we are. This is what we're going to try and do. But essentially, as long as we're together and we look after each other, like it's kind of enough. I know everyone needs to like want to do more with their lives, obviously, but they almost had tried with like movies and stuff like that to do something different. It didn't work, and they ended up back, and they were quite happy when they got back at the end of Clerks 2. They were happy that they were there again, right?
Mhm.
And I know obviously Dante's character has lost someone, which makes it harder. But then he has Randall, right? Which is there's no, like that's not enough. But it's almost it kind of is enough because he's ever reliant for Dante, right?
Mhm.
So and then
I
you
think
take Dante away from Randall.
yeah,
So you
but
know,
I think that that's kind of like the magic thing about it for me is that um like the the idea that they got the quick stop back and they got it on their own terms, and then pretty soon after that Becky dies and Dante sort of loses all purpose, like all reason is with those two people, like his kid and Becky. um and I think it so much of the film is about um like finding your purpose, like finding the reason that you're getting up every day and doing something. Like that's the conversation after Randall dies, right? Is it's like, I don't want to waste any more time. Like I want to do something and tell a story. um And I think that is the magic, that you've got two people, one who has completely lost their purpose and the other who's finding it. And so when you get to the end and like Dante watches the film, the cinema with Becky, which I think is really well done, it's like the confirmation that he's like, I'm leaving like Randall not in a place where he's questioning things. Like Randall knows who he is and what he wants to go and do. Like I can leave him here. And I thought that was like there's something magical about that in the way that you've watched these two people sort of just meander and figure out their way and who they are and what they want to do and all this stuff. And so much of Dante's was always about the girl. Like the first film is about the girl and is about Veronica and him and stuff. The second one is about him and Becky. And so when you take that out, it's like the whole thing that he sort of built his life on, which is finding the right girl, it happened and he lost it. Whereas for Randall, it's never been about that. For Randall, it was always like he wants to find meaning in just being here and being who he is and like not trying to be something that he isn't. And so I think that that's where the thing nails me. Like it's incredibly sad. Like that is an incredibly sad way to look at like these two characters, I think. But I also think that that's like the that's where Kevin Smith, I think, nails it for me, is that that's the reality, is that for some people they are like that, where it's just like people have different purposes and people kind of lose something and it's like really hard to bounce back from that. It's just the fact that it takes place in this world where it's like you're so used to it just being kind of silly fun, and then there's like a serious scene and whatever. And I feel like Clerks 3 is just this combination of kind of like Clerks 1 and 2 and Chasing Amy, because the ending is like, it's the same feeling I had as Chasing Amy at the end, where Chasing Amy is not like, it's not a happy ending. As you said, you don't feel like that's closed the book, that's finite. And that's kind of what Clerks 3 is like, it's closed the book on Dante, but it's like, well, there's Randall left and there's Elias, and how does all that stuff move forward? And I think the last shot where it does the pullback and it's Randall and he's sort of there and like Dante appears, and there's like a real sense of you just don't want that to, like, you just don't want it to pull back. Like the minute you see that shot, you're like, it's going to pull back as it has with 1 and 2. But because this is the last time you'll see the two of them together, probably, unless he does a prequel of some sort, it's sad. Like the last note you leave that on is like, I just don't want that to, like, I don't want it to stop pulling back, because the minute that pulls back, that's it. Like Dante's gone. Like that is, that's it. And I think that's a magical thing to be able to capture. Like capturing that on film and in writing is really difficult. And then I think the bit in the credits, did you listen to that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, when he talks about that Randall keeps going on with his films and everything.
Yeah, and I think that's really nice that he's like, Randall kind of keeps doing his passion, like he keeps doing his thing, and in a way, it kind of feels as if like that's his way of carrying Dante, like for the rest of his life. Is like they spent so long talking about films and pop culture and stuff, and that's all Randall kept doing. It was like he kept doing that same thing, and I don't know.
Well, it's like Kevin Smith, right? Kevin Smith probably was a massive geek, so he started making films.
Yeah,
and he hasn't stopped, has he?
No, and I think like, as you say,
because Randall's in this sense, Randall's Kevin Smith, isn't he? Because he's making films and he's had a heart attack and he's survived.
Yeah, and then but it is an odd ending in the same way that I think Chasing Amy is, because it doesn't leave you with like joy or a sense of fulfillment, but at the same time it's very real. Like I feel like that is, and that's like the first Clerks is real, like that's pretty much reality, with a little bit of kind of exaggeration. But yeah, it's just it. I think that's what I liked about it, is that it felt honest and it felt real. And there is like, I think the stuff that I didn't like in the first watch was the exaggerated stuff. Where I was like, oh, this feels really out of place because the film is
But I
kind of
think that's why I struggle with. I think
okay.
quite a bit of it was out of place. I think that's
Yeah,
probably what's taken away from me the emotional punch that you're talking about now, like
yeah,
in the way that's done.
yeah,
Because one minute you got stuff like that going on, the next thing you've got Elias dressed up as a Satanist,
yeah,
and in a hospital in a serious situation, and he thinks it's because of like his beliefs that
yeah.
these things are happening, and it kind of takes you out of the moment a little bit. You
Hmm.
also wonder if you feel if Dante was just to leave, not die, but just leave,
Hmm.
is there any situation where that works,
Yeah,
or is it too? Because for me, I think he could have just left and
right.
like been like, here are the keys. This is what you want. I need to go and find me and what I want to do, and then leave that open to interpretation. Like, what does he do? Where does he go? Like I just I think for the fact that he's if it is the obviously they're still talking about doing like more racks and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You never know. You never know if he'll be like, I've got another idea for Clerks. If he was to do Clerks now and it was to be Elias and Randall, I'd be like, no,
Hmm.
I don't want to see that. I don't mind them showing up in other things, but it would have been nice to have that door open a little bit so maybe those two characters, it might not even be necessary, but I think you kill them off, then it's just that is done, and maybe that's what he obviously that's probably what he's intending. But I just think there's a script there where he could have just left, and
Yeah.
it would have been tough and it would have been upsetting still. But obviously dying packs a more emotional punch. But I think it's I don't know. I just everything you said, I completely understand, and I could easily have that view as well.
Hmm.
And you're right. You are 100% right on it. But I just still didn't like that ending really.
Yeah, I
So
mean, yeah, I think like my thing was always just that some of the some of the exaggeration humor doesn't match the ending. Um, and I think that's just a tonal thing. That's like either you like that humor and it works for you, or you don't. And I just think that like last half an hour, the last 25 odd minutes, um, for me is like a pitch perfect thing because it's pretty serious and it's like the sense of joy comes out of the fact that like Dante does get the girl. Like it ends with him
yeah,
walking out of the cinema with Becky, and I was like, that's nice. And I've always liked the idea as well that like they've done it in other things as well. That when you die, it's like you watch a film and you're in a cinema and you sort of see your life on screen. Um, and that
I
felt
like that as well.
yeah, and I felt like that was especially poignant for Dante, like just to have that thing. And I think
I
his
always think about
conversation,
that with I don't know if you ever seen all of Scrubs.
yeah, and he watches the thing at the end,
He
like
watches thing and it's just his like life. Or but then they did another fucking season of Scrubs.
yes,
It was like the
it's
best ending for JD's character, where he just saw everything that he wanted, like kids and everything. And
yeah,
he's so sad when he's watching it. And I get that. I do like the idea of Dante being with Becky
hmm.
in the cinema, watching these things and smiling, being happy. But again, it's again because Randall doesn't know that, does he?
No, but I think that's kind of
So
like the yeah,
Randall is like, okay, he's at peace and stuff like that. But again, like I think it would have been nicer for the people that we have like grown with these characters in these three films,
mhm.
especially like to know that he kind of goes off to try and find something else
Yeah.
in his life because he's young, right? As well, he's not old. No, we're
I
not
mean, yeah, he
talking
must
about
be
like
like
we're not talking
50,
about an
40,
85
50.
year old man who's lost and
Yeah.
he's just like, oh, no, that's it for me now. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing else. Like he's still young enough that there was probably something out there for him still.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is there are obviously a lot of people in life that will throw like feel like this is done now, like I can't go on. But also, he did have friends still, right? He had friends and he had some stuff going for him. And I just think I would have rather that story. I would have rather a
Mm-hmm.
story where there is some hope for Dante still.
Yeah.
It's not like I know he didn't like, he didn't commit suicide or anything, but
Yeah.
There's obviously a part where he's like at peace, isn't he? And then he drifts off. But I just don't know. I just thought it would have been a better ending, not nicer, because I'm not just talking. I don't want just like a fluffy ending, but I wanted it I wanted Dante to have more to go for, because I think he's such a main character. He's obviously a main character in this whole thing. That I would have liked to have that. Like I would have liked to have left this in. I thinking like I don't know where he's going to go or what he's going to do, but he'll find something, I'm sure. So he just needs to get out of the world that he's in and know that base is always there should he need it.
You see, that's what I think it like is really interesting about this as well, is because you get, and I'm sure like if anybody listens to this, everybody's sort of got a different interpretation of that ending. Like for me, I prefer that it's finite, that it's like he is dead, because I feel like if it was the other way, that he had just gone off, I'd either expect to have that resolved and you find out and it's like, give me that ending, or I'd feel like, I think if it was just left and he never came back, I'd feel cheated. I'd feel like, well, like I've just spent so much time with him and you're not going to tell me where he goes or what he does. And so the kind of giving me as a finite is like, I've basically just watched this person's like essentially like their greatest hits in Clerks 1, 2, and 3. It's like these are the things that have made this person, and the finite version of that is like he didn't ultimately get what he wanted out of life. And yeah, I don't know. I think that
you wouldn't have ever thought that ending at Clerks 2 though. You would never think that's the ending, right? That's the end that we're gonna get.
No, I mean like
I think Kevin Smith having a heart attack, that's not the end. Like I don't imagine the ending is someone dying. I don't. I just I know he's read the script out before, but I might be way off here. Maybe they all die, but
I imagine at some point they were going to die, because like if he was going to kill Dante off in Clerks by shooting him, which would have been bonkers, I do feel like ultimately it would have gone down that same road where it was like one of them would die in some way. And I think like that's the thing as well, is like that really surprised me is that I would never go into a View Askew film other than maybe Dogma thinking like somebody's going to die in this, because they're just not the sort of films where you're like, oh, death is going to be a present thing. And I find that that's one of the interesting things about Clerks 3, is that it is sort of asking you like to talk about like death and mortality and all that kind of stuff in some way. And I don't know, I also think from like a writing point of view, that must be so weird to like have a character that you've written for what, like 20, 30 years, whatever it is, and then to kill them off. Like that must have been such a momentous thing, just to like like I can't imagine what that would be like to have a character that I just lived with for so long, and was there at the start of this thing, and then to just go like, yeah, they're dead. Like that must be so.
I wonder what brought Jeff Anderson back though. I wonder if it was something like that, like the writing of this version of the script was kind of like, that must be like a tough decision to make. I'm all in to make this story work and to wrap this up, because it seems very final now, doesn't it, with these guys? So
yeah, like I really can't imagine that there's going to be like a Clerks 4, just because Clerks feels like the two of them. And I feel like that is it. Like it has, like he's just put a final kind of tie on it. I don't know. I really enjoy it, but I think I enjoy it for the reasons that it's like, I think, as you say, for other people, they'll struggle with it because it's just like, it's like a harsh hit of reality.
Well, it did quite. Well, it was well received, wasn't it? The film. I think it's like a lot of these sort of later on in these films. It's like if you like Kevin Smith films in this universe, then you're gonna like this because it's for you basically.
Yeah.
Feels weird that we talked about the film for almost 40 minutes, but we've only talked about the ending. Obviously, we both had a lot of thoughts on the ending.
Yeah,
but the film itself is fine as well. Like I like certain beats of it. The bits that you said, there are some funny bits in there as well, but the funny bits make the sad bits for me hard to really like go with. Like, especially on the second watch, I was kind of like there's all doom and gloom at the end. It's like, I mean, I don't remember any funny bits in Chasing Amy when I rewatched it, but if there were any, it was like knowing what I was getting myself into. I was like, none of this is funny. So yeah, so just I almost wish. I'm glad. Clerks 3 seems like the end for now. Obviously, they are talking about doing more Rats 2 and stuff like that, but it's kind of also hard to think of him doing anything with this group of guys anymore, like Jay and Silent Bob and obviously Randall and anything like that, all them popping up in other films. It kind of feels like he's kind of like, if Jay and Silent Bob reboot was like his MCU ending, this kind of feels like his almost like his independent film ending.
Yeah.
So I don't know where he goes from this really. Like I don't know what happens next, but I mean it's been fun to watch them all again. I just kind of wish it didn't end on such a Chasing Amy level ending. Like I said, I don't need it to be happy, but like, you know, them playing hockey on the roof and stuff like that was a nice ending.
Yeah.
So you know, something like that where it's, I don't know what I wanted, but it wasn't the ending that I got. But for what it was, I can see why it's well received. I can see with your logic behind it and everything that it makes sense. But I didn't really want Dante to get killed off, I guess, which is probably just because I like Dante a lot as well. So maybe he did. Maybe he's got me. Maybe that's the point. Maybe I should be feeling like Kevin Smith screwed me. So so yeah. So out of all these films then that we've watched and we've talked about, what is your favorite out of all the films?
Clerks 2 is pretty high because I love it. Yeah, probably Clerks 2. Although, like, I do really enjoy Chasing Amy. It's very like you have to be in a mood to watch Chasing Amy. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, it's probably between Clerks 2 and Dogma, I think.
Okay, cool.
So, because I've got a real soft spot for Dogma, but I've got so many good memories of watching Clerks 2 with my mates and just you know, being, like I said when we did the podcast, like crying out loud funny, like when I watched Anchorman and things like that, like the first time, just ridiculously funny. For some of it has no reason to be that so funny when it happens, but it is. Like the dialogue about like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and Pillow Pants is just forever etched in my soul of being hilarious. Every time I watch it, it's funny.
Yeah.
So there's one of those films as well. I think you could just watch with someone that's never seen it before and just enjoy the fact that they've never seen it before, and like you'd be laughing even if they don't find it funny. Hopefully they would laugh because you'd be laughing so much. So yeah, Clerks 2 would probably be my favorite film, I guess, out of all of them. So
nice.
I feel like if we had more time, we should have gone actually more into Clerks 3. But hey, we've done the main bit. That's what everyone's here for. The bit at the end.
Yeah.
So, unless someone's listening to this and they're like, "Oh, I'll wait until the spoilers kick in," but it was like, bam, Dante dies.
Yeah.
So,
but like, so much as like film does hinge on that, and like obviously there's like loads of cameos we can talk about, and like, but they're all in like one section. I think that's it. Is that so much of the film is about where the ending takes you.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot about Randall's health and then Dante's health, and obviously the film stuff is like the kind of the throwback to Clerks and stuff, and you're reliving all these other memories and things, but.
Yeah,
it all builds throughout the film to this ending, and I think probably the swerve is that Randall does have a heart attack and he survives it, and I think during that bit you probably don't think you're anywhere near that situation again. But it you know, as the film progresses, you sort of get more instinct that it's going to, not that necessarily Dante's going to die, but like something big, there's a twist coming here because the Randall bit happens so early on that it's like, you know, feels like there was something else at work. So yeah, I did like it. I'm not a huge downer on it. I didn't like it as much as I thought I would like it. So I was really excited about it when it was announced. So I mean, half the reason we're doing this in depth, right, was before COVID that we were going to tie this podcast into the release of Clerks 3. So that was the thing we were looking forward to. It was like, oh, this will be brilliant. We'll do this, and then Clerks 3 will come out, and that'll be the last one. But then multiple things happened in between that part of the journey. So yeah, a little bit underwhelmed at the end.
Nice.
Right. So season 3, Nick, is now done. That was our last in depth. So we have some changes coming for season 4, which we're going to talk about very quickly now before we wrap up the episode for those who are interested.
Yes.
So season 4 is going to be a little bit different. The first thing is that we are going to, very excitingly, move over to Get Your Comic On, which is a very well-known podcast. They have a website. They do all sorts of things. They have loads of people who write reviews. It's a fantastic team. So they are going to, I don't know, take us on.
Yeah.
And our podcast will be through them. We'll still be the Consistent OK podcast. You'll still find us on our own social media and things like that, but we'll also have them helping us, promoting us, talking with us, doing various things. So it's very exciting. We can't wait to get started with them, but our podcast will change slightly as well. Instead of doing a pop culture episode and an in-depth episode, we're going to mainly focus on our in-depth series and try and be even more in-depth with each thing that we talk about, and also we'll throw in some pop culture bits at the end of each episode. So probably 10-15 minutes of various things, because things pop up all the time. But our main focus will be the in-depth things, because the Get Your Comic On team, you have loads of very talented people who cover all sorts of pop culture things. So the last thing you need is Nick and I going on about the MCU for 14 minutes and bringing me close to tears. So we'll still have some of it. We're going to be doing Daredevil season 1, which was originally on Netflix, and now it's on Disney Plus. So we're going to go through each episode of that season as our next in depth. So that will start when we launch, I believe, in August. It's going to be.
Yeah.
So at some point in August. So you can go to Get Your Comic Con's social media accounts. You can find them on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter and Facebook, and their website as well. So if you want any information, they'll be giving out some information soon enough, and we'll keep you updated on our social media as well. The other thing is we will probably be not so active on Twitter anymore. We've both sort of made a decision that we're going to move away from that, but we'll be using Instagram and Threads and activating our Substack account again as well, and we'll put more information and updates and reviews and thoughts on there. So so we're going to have a bit of a break. I know it hasn't been the most consistently okay release schedule for season 3 due to various matters, but the aim is for season 4 is to be bi-weekly as well. So an in-depth episode with a bit of pop culture every 2 weeks from Nick and I, with guests every now and again. It's going to be good. We love Daredevil season 1.
We do, yes, and it's all leading towards
I really like Daredevil season 1.
It's great. It's
going to be so good.
Yes.
I'm excited. So alright, so that's it for us. So if you do want to follow us on social media, you can find us on most platforms under Consistently Pod. On YouTube, you can just search for Consistently OK Podcast, and on any podcast provider as well, you can just search for Consistently OK Podcast, and all our old episodes and current episodes will come up from season 1, 2, and 3.
Sweet.
Alright.
That's it.
Excellent.
Done.
Well, thanks everyone for listening for the whole season. If you listen to the whole season, then we appreciate you.
Yes. Cool.
Alright.
Cheers, dude.
Nick, take care one and all.
See everyone soon.
Bye.
Bye.